Some horror stories are made to scare you for a few minutes. But some stories stay with you, because they really happened. In this video, I'm not telling ghost stories or made-up horror. These are real basement stories from the USA, where normal houses hid unimaginable fear underneath. People walked outside in daylight, while real humans were trapped in darkness below. No monsters. No fiction. Just silence, fear, and survival. This video is different. Because every story you're about to hear is real. Watch till the end. Because reality is far more disturbing than imagination. If you want to see more real horror stories that will keep you on the edge, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey. 1. Ariel Castro Basement Horror. The first thing that stayed with me was the smell. Old walls, damp air, and something heavy that never left the room. This was not a haunted place, but the fear here felt alive. I remember standing near the stairs that led down, knowing that for years, these steps were the line between the outside world and a nightmare no one could see. This basement belonged to Ariel Castro's house in Cleveland, Ohio. On the street, everything looked normal. Kids once played nearby. Cars passed every day. No one knew that behind those walls, 3 young women were losing years of their lives in silence. The basement was small, dark, and controlled. Doors were locked. Windows were blocked. Chains were used to make sure no one could run. Imagine waking up every day without knowing if it was morning or night. No phone. No calendar. No voice except the man who decided when you ate, slept, or spoke. That kind of fear does not scream. It sinks in slowly. I kept thinking about the moments when hope almost died. Birthdays passed. Seasons changed outside, but down here, time did not move. One of the women was taken as a teenager. Another became a mother while still trapped. Life continued in the worst place possible, where even breathing felt like permission, not a right. What made this place truly disturbing was not just the suffering, but how long it lasted. Over 10 years. Neighbors lived their lives above ground, unaware that real human beings were counting footsteps and listening for keys, praying for one mistake. Every small sound mattered. Every quiet moment felt dangerous. Then one day, something changed. A door was left unlocked. A voice was heard through the walls. A scream finally escaped the house. That scream carried years of pain with it. When police arrived, they did not find ghosts or monsters. They found the truth. Chains. Locked rooms. Broken lives that somehow survived. Standing there, I felt sick, not because it was a crime scene, but because it was a reminder. Real horror does not need darkness effects or scary music. It lives in places where no one is looking. This basement proved that the most terrifying stories are not imagined. They are lived, quietly, by real people who never knew if the world would remember them again. 2. Gary Heidnick's Basement of Nightmares. The basement felt colder than the rest of the house, even though it was summer outside. The air was heavy, like it had learned to stay still. I remember taking a step down and feeling my stomach tighten, because this was not just a room. This was the place where fear once lived for real. This was Gary Heidnick's basement in Philadelphia. From the street, the house looked ordinary. A place you would pass without a second thought. That is what disturbed me the most. Horror does not always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind normal walls and quiet streets. Down here, women were held against their will. Chains were fixed to pipes. There was no comfort, no safety, and no escape. I tried to imagine what it must have felt like to be brought here for the first time. The sound of the door closing. The sudden understanding that help was not coming. That moment alone could break a person. Time in this basement did not move normally. Days blended into nights. Pain became routine. Hunger was constant. The women had to rely on each other to survive, even while living in constant fear. One wrong move, one wrong sound, could lead to punishment. That kind of terror does not fade. It stays in the mind long after the body leaves. What made this place worse was the silence. No screams reaching the outside. No neighbors realizing what was happening below their feet. Life went on above ground, while down here, people were losing pieces of themselves. I stood there thinking about how invisible suffering can be when no one is looking for it. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of the women managed to escape. Injured, terrified, but alive. When police finally entered the basement, they did not find a horror movie set. They found proof. Chains. Blood. Signs of abuse that could not be denied. The truth was finally louder than the silence. Standing there, I felt a deep anger mixed with sadness. This was not just about one man. It was about how easily evil can hide in plain sight. This basement did not need shadows or ghosts to be terrifying. What happened here was enough. When I walked back up the stairs, the light felt wrong, almost unfair. Because I knew that for the victims, the darkness did not end when they left this place. Real horror follows you. And this basement will always be a reminder that the most disturbing stories are not made up. They happened. To real people. In real homes. Right here. 3. The Girl in the Basement, USA. The house was quiet in a way that made noise feel dangerous. Even the floorboard seemed careful when I stepped inside. I remember thinking how normal it looked from the outside. Trees, a yard, nothing that warned you. But the moment I moved closer to the basement door, my chest felt tight, like the air itself knew what had happened here. This was a real house in West Virginia. And for years, a young girl lived below it, hidden from the world. Not missing on a map, but erased from daily life. The basement was not deep underground, yet it was far from everything human. Light barely reached the corners. The walls felt closer than they should have. I tried to picture her first days down there. Confusion before fear. Hope before understanding. She was locked away by someone who was supposed to protect her. That thought stayed with me. The betrayal was worse than the darkness. Time stopped being time in that room. No school mornings. No birthdays. Just the sound of footsteps above and the wait for them to leave again. She grew up in that basement. Years passed while the world moved on without her. I stood there imagining what it must feel like to listen to normal life happening upstairs. People talking. Doors opening. A television playing. All of it so close, yet completely unreachable. That kind of isolation changes how a person thinks. Silence becomes heavy. Hope becomes dangerous. What shook me the most was how strength survives in places like this. Even in fear, she remembered who she was. Even when the door stayed closed, her mind kept a small window open. One day, that strength found a way out. A moment of courage. A chance that could have failed, but didn't. When the truth finally came out, the basement was no longer just a room. It was evidence. Proof of years stolen. Police saw what the walls had witnessed in silence. The world finally learned what had been hidden in plain sight. Not a story from a movie, but a real life broken and somehow saved. As I stepped away from the basement, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that she survived. Sadness that she had to. This place does not feel scary because it is dark. It feels scary because it reminds you how easily someone can disappear without leaving a place. Real horror is not about monsters. It is about people who endure what no one should ever have to live through. For J.C. Dugard, living underground for 18 years. The yard looked ordinary at first. Grass, a fence, a quiet street. I remember thinking how easy it would be to miss everything. Then I focused on the ground, and that feeling changed. Somewhere beneath this calm surface, a child's life disappeared for years. Not into darkness, but into silence. J.C. Dugard was only 11 when she was taken in California. What followed was not a hidden mansion or a faraway place. It was a backyard. A shed. A space built to keep someone unseen. Standing there, I kept thinking about how close normal life was. Cars passed. Neighbors talked. And underground, a girl grew up alone. The air felt wrong when I imagined the underground cell. Low ceilings. Limited light. No real sense of day or night. Years passed without freedom. Childhood turned into survival. She missed school mornings, holidays, and simple choices. The world above continued, while her world stayed small and controlled. What made this place terrifying was not how deep it was, but how long it lasted. 18 years. Almost 2 decades of stolen time. I tried to picture the sound of footsteps above her head, knowing those steps did not mean rescue. Hope became something dangerous, something that could hurt if trusted too much. And yet, life found a way to continue. She became a mother while still trapped. Imagine holding a child in a place meant to erase you. Imagine protecting someone else while having no protection yourself. That thought stayed with me longer than anything else. Strength does not always look loud. Sometimes it survives quietly. When the truth finally came out, it was not because someone suspected a monster. It was because JC was seen. For the first time, the underground world broke open. Police found the hidden structures. The years of silence were finally given a voice. The horror was no longer hidden under soil and wood. Walking away from that place in my mind, I felt heavy. Not scared in the way movies scare you, but shaken in a deeper way. This was real. No ghosts. No shadows. Just a child taken from daylight and kept underground while life moved on above her. Real horror does not chase you. It waits. It hides in plain sight. And this story stays disturbing because it reminds you how close safety and nightmare can exist, separated by nothing more than a few steps of earth. 5 Basement Captivity inspired by Joseph Fritzl, USA. The door was heavier than it looked. When I imagined it closing, the sound felt final, like a decision made without asking anyone inside. I remember thinking how ideas can travel across countries, and how a horror born in one place can quietly repeat itself somewhere else. In the United States, after the Joseph Fritzl case shocked the world, police began finding similar setups. Not the same man. Not the same house. But the same idea. Hidden basement rooms. Locked doors. People erased from daily life. I stood there in my mind, trying to understand how someone could copy something so cruel. These basements were not old cellars by accident. They were built on purpose. Walls reinforced. Windows blocked. Doors designed to stay shut. From the outside, everything looked normal. Families lived nearby. Neighbors waved hello. And below, someone waited. Counting footsteps and listening for keys. What disturbed me most was how planned it all felt. This was not a moment of anger. This was time, effort, and intention. Victims were kept for months, sometimes years. Food came on a schedule. Silence was enforced. Fear became routine. When you control someone's space, you start controlling their mind. That truth sat heavy with me. I kept thinking about the first night down there. The shock. The disbelief. The hope that this was a mistake. Then the slow understanding that it was not. That the door would not open just because you asked. That screaming might make things worse. That survival meant learning the rules of a place never meant for living. In some of these cases, the outside world only learned the truth by chance. A mistake. A sound heard at the wrong time. A victim finding a moment of courage when fear was strongest. When police finally entered these basements, they did not need imagination. The rooms spoke for themselves. Chains. Locks. Evidence of years stolen quietly. Walking away from this thought, I felt a cold anger. Not just at the people who built these rooms, but at how easy it was to hide them. These stories are real. Documented. And terrifying because they show how horror can be copied, repeated, and hidden in ordinary neighborhoods. This is not a ghost story. There is no mystery creature. The fear comes from knowing that someone learned from another person's evil and decided to try it themselves. And that realization stays with you, long after the door is finally opened.